I figured out what kind of person Paul was because I was watching that tape back when that kid got hooked real bad. That bull camped on him. And this dude charges the fence, like, on the top rail. And that bull's still sitting on top of this kid. And, like, was not going to stop. Was going to get in there.
Yeah.
Like,
were you going to go in there?
Yeah. I had a weird premonition that something was going to happen at that. I'm not a weird guy like that, but I was just sitting back there going, man, if somebody gets balled up, it's probably going to be right at my feet. And I saw him get rolled. And when he started rolling towards me and he was in the fence, I looked around and none of the other fighters were anywhere near where they were going to help him. So I climbed up on the top of the fence and I was getting ready to jump down. And then right as I was getting ready to jump, and he saw the light under the banner, and I watched him. I was looking down at the bull, looking down at him, and he rolled under my feet, and then I jumped off on the outside. But that's the smartest thing that...
Rodeo time. Got to get her on down the road.
Do you know this guy's friends with Tyler Childers?
he looks like that.
Is that why you look like Tyler Childers? Because you're friends with him?
No, well,
but,
we
you
were
know, like-
we were hanging out, and he's like, yeah, so Tyler, and we have a mutual friend, Tyler Wilhelm, and I was like, yeah, wait, Tyler went to Kentucky? What are you talking about? And he's like, no, Childers, man.
How'd you meet Tyler Childers?
What?
Oh, like 5 years ago in Oregon, his old tour manager used to be a ranger, and we started talking at
Oh,
a sport
nice.
show. And then it was when Tyler was still hanging out at the bars, and now we kind of run in the same group of musicians. And
That was before he dropped that Purgatory album. Yeah.
Welcome to Rodeo Time with Dale Brisby. We're talking to Paul Handleman here, Leroy Gibbons, Donnie Ray Daytona. Paul is going to tell some war stories, and he's also going to tell us about his album.
yeah, I've got a new record coming out in July. I was up in Eastern Kentucky we're filming now, recording that in February. And
What's it called, the album?
Until This Point.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually not one of the track names, but
Is
it's the
it?
name of the record.
That's all right.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Is it
Well, the idea is
jazz?
yeah, it's all jazz, smooth jazz.
All jazz flute.
Smooth jazz. Leroy played on 4 tracks.
Mean sax. Playing the mean sax.
Mean saxophone.
Yeah, all woodwinds, actually.
Did you know that I performed a
JK,
Tinder
what's that?
wedding and he played
Oh, I
saxophone?
meant to bring this up. So I go by Padre Paul as a musician
Uh-huh.
because I am an officiant. I've done 4 weddings.
Padre Paul.
And I was thinking
I noticed that was your handle.
Padre Paul Deacon Dale.
Mm.
You know, there might be something.
Padre Paul and Deacon Dale. I like that.
Sounds like a whole new podcast.
Yeah,
Or a whole new music album.
That's
we
what I was
might
about to
have
say.
a record.
I could play the maracas. Is that the deal you shake?
Yes,
Yeah, and the tambourine.
tambourine.
exactly.
Yeah, maraca and a tambourine.
Yeah, get flowers.
But the
in there.
prequel to Deacon Dale and Padre Paul's debut album is coming out end of July, and it's called Until This Point. And I'm going to release all the info on it on my social media on Instagram because it's the only social media I use. And then I'll put a single out early July, and the record will be out slowly after that on all streaming platforms. And I'm going to do some sort of hard copy release with some CDs, posters, and possibly some vinyl. So keep your eyes out, and there'll be a lot more stuff coming out for that.
Did you get that one CD?
One CD.
CDs. Oh, got him.
He showed me a few of the songs. They're pretty dang good. It's going to be a really good album. I'm excited to hear the rest of it.
Well, now let's get into the podcast.
Rodeo time.
When we're doing a mic check, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, I agree.
But if you are not talking into the microphone, you can't say
I get nervous.
talking into the microphone. We had to start over. We couldn't hear Paul. There was
That's
some,
my fault. I was whispering.
Yeah. Well, I was like, he's about to spit some gold, and nobody's going to hear it.
We'll put subtitles on
Good
the
job,
podcast for
Donnie.
you to hear, though.
Yeah. Paul suggested subtitles. Welcome to Rodeo Time with Dale Brisby, take 2. I believe this is podcast number 27. Welcome to podcast number 27. You said you've listened to a few.
Yeah.
Was that just to do research because you knew you were going to be on the show, or you're a fan?
Fan.
On the spot.
Yep,
Yep. There
absolutely.
you go.
Yep.
Which ones you listen to?
The last one, definitely. Yeah, because that was the first one that was up when I opened the podcast.
Yep.
And then when you open podcast, there's like 5 you can click, and I pretty much clicked those 5.
Nice. What numbers were they? I wonder if they're in order. I wonder how it
They
works.
are in order.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
I
the most
listened
recent.
to the 21st birthday where the podcast got hammered because it turned 21. And
Yes.
I think Donnie was going to take him to Billy's. Is that where Donnie was going to take
Billy
him?
Bob's?
Billy Bob's for
Yep.
his 21st, yeah.
Yeah.
And I listened up from there. There's some good ones.
There-
Q&A was killer.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
We need to do that again.
It was a good time.
I haven't seen those. I don't know what you're talking about.
So I forgot to introduce, we've got Paul Handleman here. He is on our guest for podcast number 27, Leroy Gibbons, Mr. Donnie Daytona, Ray Daytona, and Dale Brisby. And you were just telling us about your shirt. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Ranger Cattle, it's a ranch I used to live on down in Austin with a buddy of mine who started it.
Oh, so you live there.
Well, my Airstream was unhitched there.
Gotcha.
So that's where it fell off my truck. So I slept there.
Gotcha. For how long?
Off and on for a year before I took a different ranching job south of Austin. And then last year for about another 6 months before I came up to Oklahoma.
Nice. So they raise Wagyu.
Wagyu.
So
Yeah.
did you get to eat a lot of Wagyu?
I ate all of the Wagyu, yes.
All the way. Do you feel like it really tastes that much better?
Initially, I didn't, but as I ate it more and kind of tried different ways of cooking it, I think it really does, certain ways. But, I mean, if you're going to grill a steak, you're going to grill a steak. You got to put some TLC into making that quality of beef worth it.
Right.
But, yeah, it's good stuff. And it
Um,
looks. The marbling always looks
Yeah.
really nice. So
I've never had Wagyu.
I'll bring
Haven't
some
either.
up when I pass back through on the way up north again.
No,
Gotcha.
you don't have to do that.
I'll throw it out the window while I'm driving.
That's where you're going right now?
Yeah, I'm running down there to dehorn all his calves this weekend.
Just dehorn?
We'll dehorn and de-nut.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we typically
Castration.
we do it twice a year down there, and I used to just come down and help him here and there, and then we all kind of took on roles doing it because it used to just be him doing all the work, and then whoever could find to help him. Now there's about 3 of us that go run them all through and do all the dehorning and castrations, and there's a lot of data collect that goes on with that breed because they're all AI. They're strictly AI. So
Gotcha. How do you know this guy?
Josh was a ranger in 1st Ranger Battalion, and I was a ranger in 2nd Ranger Battalion, and we met through mutual friends.
That's
in
in the Coast Guard. Oh, Army. Oh,
Oh, I'm gonna head out. It's good talking to you.
what? I forgot.
That was Ashton Kutcher. Okay.
You were Ashton Kutcher?
No, Ashton Kutcher was in the Coast Guard.
Was he really? I didn't
It's
know
a
that.
movie.
It's a movie.
Which one? Oh,
Kevin.
Kevin
Costner.
Costner.
when they're like out in the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's what the Coast Guard
There's no
does.
Black Hawk Down, is what I'm getting at.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, when were you in the Army?
Late 2011 till 2017.
6 years.
Just short
wow.
of 6, yeah.
It's quick math. Really quick
That's
math.
good, man.
You're welcome.
Oh,
Yeah.
So you've been doing your timetables.
That's why I'm the host. Because I'm good at math. What made you go in?
A few different things, but I was in college at the time I decided to do it, and I ended up doing the university I was at, ROTC program. So I went the officer route, and I knew I wanted to be a ranger, and doing it the officer way just meant it was going to take me longer to get to that unit the way rank structure works. I'd always wanted to be in the military, and then I thought I'd do college first, and I got to college, and I was kind of a loose cannon and kind of wild, and I needed something to chill me out and get me focused. So I just decided to figure out how to do both, and they paid for my college doing it that way, so I figured why not.
Yep. What college?
University of Montana. Go Grizz.
Go Grizz. Is that where you grew up?
No, grew up in Missouri, just outside of Kansas City, near St. Joseph.
So why'd you go to Montana?
I wanted to go west.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Haven't you been told?
Yeah. So you're a Missouri boy, like Donnie.
Yep.
What part of Missouri?
Northwest, so right up 15 minutes out of Kansas City, but north of the river. So there's north of the river folk and south of the river folk. South of the river folk are typically in Kansas City downtown or Kansas City, Kansas, and then we're north of the river and we're a little more rural, still pretty decent sized town. But my granddad used to be the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, and he moved up there from Joplin to start broadcasting in the 50s, and our family's been there ever since.
Nice. So you're gonna go back there one day?
I thought I was going to go back there after being away for, a long time, like 11, 12 years. And I went back to help another buddy start a different ranch, and I was in Kansas City for about 3 months when I realized I'm not going back. And I left again.
Yeah.
But I've always been pretty nomadic. If there's one place I may not have left, it would have been Montana, but I had to because of the Army.
Yeah.
But every 2 or 3 years, I'm ready to move to the next place. So I don't think it's that I don't want to be back in Missouri. It's that I want to be everywhere else.
Right. So you're in ROTC, and then so you graduated college in 11?
12.
In 12?
Yeah.
And then you go where?
So my path was I graduated, and then I immediately went active duty, and so I branched infantry, so I needed to go do my infantry officer course, which is a 16-week course in Fort Benning, Georgia, and then I needed to do Ranger school immediately after infantry officer course. Because if you want to be an officer in the Army and the infantry and you don't have a Ranger tab, you're never going to get a platoon. So I did those 2 schools. I'd already done airborne school while I was in college, so I didn't have to go to jump school, and I did some other schools while I was in college over the summer. The Army will send cadets to go do big Army schools in the summer if they have the time and they pass the selection to do it. So I went down to Georgia, did infantry officer course and Ranger school, and then after those I got assigned to my unit, which I was in the big Army for 2 years. We call the big Army, like the regular Army, the big Army. And then so I did 82nd Airborne for 2.5 years, and then I moved to Special Operations after a selection process, and that's when I went to Ranger Battalion for the last 3.5 years.
So when did you go overseas?
2014, 2015.
For 2 years or just
No,
twice?
It's in between the 2 years.
Was it 9 months?
Left early. No, we would only do 4 to 5 month deployments.
45
4
months
to 5.
deployments.
Man, I said 4 to 5 last time I was at Winnebago, and he thought I said I'd been homeless for 45 years, but I said 4 to 5.
Oh, well, sometimes,
I need to accentuate my twos, I guess.
I guess so, yeah. I mean,
4 to 5 months, and then we have and when you're in Ranger Battalion, you do the shorter deployments with leave on both sides, and then a 3-month train up, and then redeploy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what'd you do when you were over there? What was your job?
I was a strike force platoon leader, so we had 3 different platoons around the region, and we would execute direct action raids.
Trying to figure out how to word it.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I can word it. But we were strategically placed around the country, and my platoon, we were in charge of training a force of Afghan special operations guys, and we were trying to hand off the mission like we've been for a long time to them to do. So we'd take them through a training cycle like we would do back stateside ourselves, and then for the practical application of it, we would have them go actually action the targets in the combat environment, and kind of as their validation, we would take a small contingent out with them as Rangers and go with them into the battle space and make sure they were executing the targets the right way and be there to help control different things that only we should be controlling out there.
So were they using people that had experience in battle to train? Or were y'all just kind of training what y'all had been trained?
It was a combination for both, and because there's such a large amount of handoff between units, so you've got your Afghan home force, and that's their home, so they're constantly in operation cycle, and since our units were cycling out so frequently, there's a lot of turnover. So you take the experience and knowledge of the advisors like us coming in to train, and then the fact that they're there, the Afghans are there all the time training. So it was just a constant handoff of where is this unit or company at in their training cycle, where do we pick up as the advisors, what part of the training do we need to get them through, and then how do we
Gotcha.
help them action targets.
Gotcha. What percentage of your job over there was you training compared to like you actually executing y'all's own stuff?
Well, our own stuff at the time was their training, whether it be in the capacity of training behind the wire or outside the wire. So it was, we weren't gonna go out without some sort of their contingent, because in the minds of the powers that be at the time,
That's the whole point.
yeah,
Gotcha.
was to figure out a way for us to hand off, and you're never gonna hand off if there's no
Training.
You're just doing it.
So you're over there, like you're in a fight, and it's this constant like, are you watching? Are you paying attention? We have a test later, and then you go back to fighting, and
Well, that's the goal was to try to get them to do everything
Right.
and make sure they do it right. And when things got really bad, if things got really bad for them, assess what's going on and coach them and train them through it. The guys I worked with, I mean, were just I was a junior officer there, so being a junior officer there, you're shielded under an umbrella of absolute badassery of guys that just have been there for a very long time and have massive amounts of combat experience. So those guys can easily be evaluators and trainers on the ground in combat at the same time. It's a weird thing to do, like kind of as an outsider looking in, but it's a very normal thing for those guys who've been at war for 15, 16 years. I mean, my platoon sergeant had been, I think, maybe on his 12th, 13th, 14th combat deployment.
dang.
most
So he
of
had
those-
been there like,
Most of those guys are just total pipe hitters, those senior guys, and they've been there forever doing it. And
so like, because obviously 9/11 was in 2001. So if them guys had been in for any stretch of several years, they had been seeing like
yeah, and
stuff since
and
then.
a lot of the guys, like the senior squad leaders and platoon sergeants and first sergeants and sergeant majors, they were very young when it all kicked off, or they immediately got in after 9/11, and so they'd gone through initial invasion, surge, change of ROE, to training, advise assist environment, back to more high intensity action targets. I mean, they'd seen it all, and
Yeah.
that's what you get as a junior officer. If you're lucky enough to get selected and you make it through selection, you do get to go there and be a strike force platoon leader or a platoon leader in any capacity. The reason they're such a successful organization is because they foster and help the junior leaders grow with the strength that the guys they're surrounded by, which is what luckily I had when I was
Gotcha.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a buddy, traveling partner. He was sitting in the airport waiting. He had finished basic training in the Marines. He'd gone home, and he's in the airport waiting to go back after his break after
Right.
basic training, and when 9/11 happened. So like he didn't get to get on his flight that day because obviously they suspended all travel
Oh yeah.
for a couple of days. But anyway, so yeah, he went over to like Baghdad. He's standing there when they tore the statue down and all that jazz.
What
But
was wild was around the time I was done, my last year or so in, the guys that started to show up to the units some of them were young enough that they weren't even alive when 9/11 happened,
dang,
which really kind of, when I sat back and thought about it, kind of blew my mind, because I was young. When I was 7th grade, I mean, I still remember very vividly, it made me think, like, what is motivating these guys to get in and do this, because we had such a strong motivator. And
Yeah.
the guys that were even older than me had such a strong motivator to do it.
right? Yeah, everybody got to watch
Right.
or had to watch, not got to watch. But so when you're training those guys, like knowing, obviously you would have had a pretty good idea of like the average Army soldier / average Army Ranger. What was their average soldier like compared to our average soldier? Obviously, it'd be hard to compare their elite to our elite but I mean, just on average, if ours are like a 9 or an 8, like, were they easy to train? Were they? No, they weren't easy to train. Yeah.
No.
Was
Not
it-
easy to train, lazy.
Yeah.
They want it, yeah.
Yeah, Ross he was telling me, I guess they were in a similar situation, but they're going in to like clear out a hotel, and he's like, there was a hotel and then another building and then a house, and they're trying to get, anyways, and they go in and there's like 3 or 4 shots fired, and it's like 40 Marines and then like 100 of the I guess it was Iraq at the time, and like 3, 4, 5 shots, and those 100 they leave. It's just like 40 Marines left.
Seriously?
They just left. Yeah, he tells this
Dang.
story about this hotel, and then they cut the power, and it's like they're in there fighting all these guys with no power, and like bumping into each other, like lights out in this clearing out this hotel.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have different insights on indige forces and where they should be and what their focus should be, but you got to take into consideration it's a third world country, the lack of education they've had, the way they've been raised, all these different factors that boil into the caliber of not just soldier but people they are as humans. And they're not all bad. But I have a big problem with guys I'm over there with my buddies training to try to take over their fight for their own country, just wanting to get me to sign letters of recommendation so they can try to get U.S. citizenship. Like, no. Stay in your country, fight your war, bro.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah, I bet that's annoying.
Yeah.
We're here to train you so you can save this country.
Yeah.
Not just so you can leave and come to ours.
Right. And while we keep coming back.
Yeah. So you got out how long ago?
2017.
Oh, so not that long. Yeah, gotcha. So what made you were in there for 6 years.
Yeah.
What is it that kind of led to you, because I'm sure they're recruiting you to stay.
This could be a rabbit hole. So I was being groomed to stay. I did not want to stay. I did not have immediate commanders that were helping foster and mentor me to get out and transition. I was being told, no, you're staying in, you're doing this, you're doing that. I ranked really high in the evaluations that we get as junior officers. I was being groomed for the next position. I wanted out. No one was counseling me. No one was talking to me about getting out. They were square pegging me into a round hole. We were on a training. I'm going to make this short, and I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. We were on a short training deployment to South Korea, training their indige forces. I was on my last straw about nobody helping me get out. So I broke some rules. I went out and got really pretty intoxicated when I shouldn't have. And I wound up in a fight with about 6 or 7 Korean police officers in downtown Seoul. And everybody was kung fu fighting in the middle of the street. And got in a little bit of trouble. And I had submitted my packet for UQR, which is you can do that when you're done serving your obligation, your time period. And I'd done that, and it was approved. And then after I got in the altercation, they pulled it back and made me go through kind of a disciplinary way of getting out. Like, we're not going to let you just get out now. Now we're going to make you feel the pain of it. And so I had to go through.
How long did that take?
Well, they tried to send me to prison in South Korea for a year and a half.
Oh, dang.
So I had to go through the full judicial process in Korea.
Dang.
Yeah, lost my life savings. My unit had to redeploy to America while I sat around working for a different unit in Korea to get through the judicial process. Finally finished all that up, came back stateside, blew out my knee the day I got home, tore all the ligaments in my knee. So I had to get that fixed. A week later, got staph infection in my knee. Had to go back, get it fixed again. Had to get my shattered AC joint repaired, which I broke on a jump. And all this stuff came trickling down, and then it fueled the fire for how I feel a lot about government organizations and structural leadership. And it was all the reason I wanted out in the first place, and nobody would help me get out. So I kind of just took the crystal ball and shattered it and got out.
What?
The only way I saw fit.
So rewind. I want to hear more about you fighting 6 guys at one time.
Yeah, that's it. No, I was fighting 6 guys. Everybody was kung fu fighting.
Yeah.
And he's just-
Well,
wait.
I don't. There are a few times in my life where I don't recall things that have happened.
That's one of them.
This is without a doubt one of them. I mean, when you want to talk about total blackness and not remembering a thing, it's this. And I know what was said in court, what I did, and I just don't have a recollection of it.
Dang.
Whatsoever.
Well, you didn't lose.
I lost my front teeth, which had been lost a few times before, so it's not like...
Yeah, that wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, they're fake already.
Yeah, and I had
Yeah, joke's on you.
I had a concussion, and eventually I was in a police station handcuffed. So
But it took 7 of them.
I don't know how many it took, but I know it was a few.
How long did it last?
They said it lasted between 20 to 30 minutes. And
Dang.
They had to have... Because what happened was, I guess more police and bystanders came to help subdue the Mexican fighting bull in the streets of Seoul. I can neither confirm nor deny, this is what my lawyer told me to say, any of the events that occurred that night.
Wow.
It was a while ago. We talked about growing up and making mistakes and making decisions. I loved everything I did. My biggest regret having to go out that way is letting my guys down as a leader.
Right.
Because my platoon and I had such a very close relationship.
Yeah.
And I was relinquishing my platoon the next week. So all I had to do was hang on 5 more days, and it would have been a better send-off. But to this day, I'm extremely close with a lot of those guys who are still warfighters. Some aren't. It's just, our relationships have gotten stronger over the years. And one thing that event did for me is it showed me the leaders that want to get away from the blood splatter as soon as it's happening, and you think they have your back, but they don't. And it showed me the guys that I would really want to go to battle with because they stay with you.
Yeah.
And you don't think until it's happening that some of those people would turn your back on you, but it opens your eyes.
So when you say turn your back on you, you mean just like overall in general about the situation, or literally on that street that night?
No, there was a guy that 100% abandoned me that night. Just one guy. But then there's a bunch of leaders who, I took onus of this from the minute it happened. I called all the leadership and told them, this is a mistake I made. I'm going to own it. Whatever consequence, I'm not making excuses for myself. I did this.
Yeah. And
I think it made them all kind of take a step back because they thought I was going to come up with all these excuses, and I just wasn't. I made a mistake.
Right.
And so they didn't know what to do. So I think their mentality was just, well, throw the book at him. And then I assumed the book would be thrown at me. I did not think that the leaders that had asked me to do things in combat and in training and break my back for them would then immediately about face and just...
Yeah, he's on his own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fine. When you spend some time on your own, it really strengthens some parts of you that you probably didn't know you have. And like I said, it filtered out the people that I wanted to be around anyway. So
yeah,
everybody was kung fu fighting.
Dang, what a story! Yeah. Dang, I didn't see that coming. 6 people. My granddad had a story like that, similar. He was, it was
Vietnam.
Yeah, leaving.
And that's the thing, like
Saigon.
When you're trained, I was really frustrated being in Korea. Like I was trained to go to be a warfighter, and all those guys were, and a lot of those guys had to do a ton of those training deployments, and we're over there at a time the rest of our units deployed to combat, and we're seeing the combat updates, we're seeing all that stuff happen in real time, and we're stuck in this country training these people who don't really
want or need it.
Right. And we just want to go do what we're trained to do. Like, it's my belief Rangers should be on an island, and there should be a glass box with a red button in it, and you shouldn't let them off that island unless you need to break that glass and hit that button.
Mm-hmm.
Because Rangers are good at doing a few things, and fighting's one of them, drinking's another, and another F word's the other. But if you're not doing those things and you have to channel that energy into something, and there's all this turning off, turning on, turning off, it's hard to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Transitioning out of the military is a whole nother hurdle, but you have the time to figure it out then.
Right.
When you're in the machine, and the machine is constantly charging and going in different directions, there's no time to figure it out.
Right.
Sometimes your head's one place and your body's another, and it's just...
Yeah. So was transitioning a little more simple for you?
Yeah.
I guess, like all those hurdles
after,
are like the
After I'd
knee
gotten through all that, I was like, man, if I can manage to get through this, and if I can finally get out of the Army, like, I know what I need to do, and that's just find a way to be happy.
Yeah.
Like, I spent all these later years not being happy, if I can just look in the mirror and more often than not ask myself, am I happy? If the answer is yes more often than not, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. When I started to kind of align my life with that, it made making decisions with what I wanted to do a lot easier.
Yeah.
I didn't have a grand plan when I got out. I just knew I needed to be doing something else.
Yeah. Was that so? As far as your list of priorities, how high on that was music? Because that's kind of one of the things you transitioned to, right?
Yeah, music kind of fell back into my lap because I'd played for a long time and then I didn't touch it in the military. And I found an old guitar while I was moving at a time I couldn't have needed it more, and I clung to that, and I started writing again a lot and playing again a lot, and then these walls kind of opened up or fell down, and the dam opened up, and it was like those two things were supposed to collide at some point in my journey, and I don't know why the things occurred to make it get there, but good and bad, I'm glad they happened because, I mean, I've been tremendously happy the last few years, and I never thought I'd be in this place because I think like a lot of guys that sign up to go do all that stuff, you don't anticipate making it probably into your 30s, and you kind of think maybe I'm going to go off and ride off into the sunset and die some crazy heroic death. And once you're out of the military and you have to realize, man, my life could go on for another 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
Then you got to really kind of think, man, what am I supposed to do?
That's wild. You're like, so you're what, 30?
30.
30?
Mm.
And you're like, oh, man, I really didn't expect to live this long. That's a crazy thought. But I guess, if anything, so it sounds like you have incredible perspective now. So we saw a little bit of that. You came to Winnebago when we had the UBF bullfights here. And so you got to kind of help Pedro react to some of the one guy broke his arm, another guy got a horn up his butt, and neither of those situations ended up being as serious as everyone thought they were in the moment.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because like the kid, they're freaking out. You're trying to, yes, the one with he was freaking out. He was screaming. But like, so in the moment, everybody thinks the worst, but you were calm as a cucumber, cool as a cucumber, whichever one cucumbers are. Now it's like, okay, you had incredible perspective. Like, you can walk over and be like, all right, guys, I know it's bad, but there's not 6 Koreans beating you up. So, like, nobody's kung fu fighting. I don't know. Is that?
Well, it's funny you mention that perspective because I've taken on some civilian jobs. What I found out in my short time of doing that is I can't really just work for anybody, because what really frustrates me is I see people either losing it or completely stressed out. And there's a thing some guys will say, like, at least you're not being shot at, or at least there aren't explosions going off. Just those little things. It's like, all it is it's just a way to say things could be worse. Yeah. And really, but those guys that were bullfighting in scenarios where injury is a real thing, internally I'm triggered up to like an 8 or a 9, but externally you don't want that to show. But it's a serious thing. But like you said, you want to quickly analyze things, and once you realize it's not life, limb, or eyesight, you want to make sure that this environment stays calm, because that's the only thing that's going to keep a guy that's hurting calm, is if you remain calm. Yeah. You don't want to be the first guy over there to be like, oh my God, there's so much blood.
Right, yeah. It's not going to help anything.
Dude,
no.
I figured out what kind of person Paul was because I was watching that tape back when that kid got hooked real bad. That bull camped on him. And this dude charges the fence, like, on the top rail, and that bull's still sitting on top of this kid. And, like, was not going to stop, was going to get in there.
Yeah.
Like,
were you going to go in there?
Yeah. I had a weird premonition that something was going to happen at that. I'm not a weird guy like that, but I was just sitting back there going, man, if somebody gets balled up, it's probably going to be right at my feet. And I saw him get rolled, and when he started rolling towards me and he was in the fence, I looked around and none of the other fighters were anywhere near where they were going to help him. So I climbed up on the top of the fence, and I was getting ready to jump down, and then right as I was getting ready to jump, and he saw the light under the banner, and I watched him. I was looking down at the bull, looking down at him, and he rolled under my feet, and then I jumped off on the outside. But that's the smartest thing. That I have nothing but respect for a guy in that much pain and that much of a stressful situation to realize what he needed to do and roll out of that
Yeah.
Ben was super good on him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
It was crazy the change of pace that happened between the stags that morning and the killers that afternoon. That was a change of pace.
yeah. After everybody ate lunch, I was like, man, I hope these guys aren't just like sitting around taking a nap after that lunch, because they're gonna have full bellies and slow legs. When I saw those fighting bulls unload, I was like, whew.
Yeah, that was serious. So, is there anything coming off of being a ranger? Is there anything relatively extreme like bullfighting that you've like wanted to do to get that rush level back to an 8 or a 9?
Yeah, there's absolutely stuff I want to do. At the same time, I have to take in consideration how much effort I had to put into making sure I was set up with all the ailments I already have and all the surgeries I've had. And so there's things I got to listen to my body more often.
Yep.
But one of the reasons I love cowboys and I love spending time around guys like you and all of you, not just you, Dale. And actually, you're probably lower on the scale, but just cowboys in general.
I understand. Leroy's mustache.
Yeah. But spending time around cowboys and just good blue-collar people is there's so many similarities between where I came from with Rangers and where cowboys' mentalities are and hard workers. It's about end of the day, like, I want to work with my hands and I want to be around honest people. And, I mean, that's why I took that job ranching in Texas, because I knew those are the type of people I want to be around. Like, you always talk about you ain't no cowboy. Well, you could translate you ain't no cowboys into you ain't no Rangers, and they'd almost fit hand in hand.
So there's guys in that like really want to talk the talk, but like when you're in the storm, they don't.
Well, that and just the whole perception of like what it means to be a real Ranger versus guys that might just have a Ranger tab. Like having a Ranger tab doesn't make you a Ranger. Like,
right.
You ain't no Ranger if you just got a Ranger tab. You need a scroll.
What's a scroll mean?
A scroll means you actually went to a selection process to work for the 75th Ranger Regiment, which is the Special Operations Unit. Anyone in the Army can go to Ranger school and endure a suck phase for 65 days to however long it takes you to pass. That's just a school. But to be a Ranger in the regiment, in one of the 3 battalions or the support battalion, you have to go through a selection process, mental and physical, and be selected to go to that unit, to be a Special Operations
So
member.
What's it like in a storm? You're at a level 8, 9, you're at a level 10 on the inside with an actual Ranger. Like, what's it like being next to somebody who has a scroll rather than someone who's just happens to be there fighting?
The difference is you just in general. Like
yeah, I guess like I'm trying to think of. You said like you ain't no Ranger, you ain't no cowboy.
Yeah,
so like
the difference is when you're next to the guy with the scroll, you probably don't even know it.
Yeah.
When you're next to the guy with the tab, he's making sure that everybody around him thinks he's a Ranger.
Gotcha. Well, so I did look at your social media, and I don't know. I know this. I don't think this is what you're talking about, but like you can't even tell that Paul's in the military. Looking at his Instagram, like it's just like you go through there, and I did notice that, and because I don't know, I feel like
there's a mentality. Veterans are their own worst enemy, trying to bridge the gap between being a veteran and moving back into the real world.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need you walking around asking everybody to thank you for your service, man. Like,
right.
That's the mentality that the bro vet community has created. And the people that want to shout the loudest in anything, you probably know this from rodeo, the people that want to shout the loudest are sometimes people with the most insecurities. I feel like that they didn't prove enough. So
yeah,
and that's just kind of the mentality of, I mean, there's operators I know out there who are 20, 25-year guys who are just like, you want to talk about some wild maniacs.
Yeah.
You would think they're soccer dads dropping their kids off at practice in their SUVs.
Right. Yeah, that's intriguing.
And you only get to that point if that's how you carry yourself.
Uh-huh.
Because it doesn't matter what people think about you. What matters is how you carry yourself.
Who's the baddest dude like that you can remember that you knew? Like that's just like kind of like in your circle, everybody was like, that's who they wanted to be like.
there's probably 5 guys I know who are real shooters and just bad dudes.
Were you with them?
One I worked for. One was in at the same time as me in a different platoon. One I work for now, who was in before I was in. We worked together in a different world. And another 2 are still in doing things above and beyond that just...
So you weren't necessarily in a Ranger with them at that time?
A couple of them I was.
Gotcha.
And a couple of them in passing, one totally not in at the same time.
Gotcha. Because as far as if you list those 5 in the cowboy world, like I'm obviously number 1.
Yeah, obviously.
You know. So that's cool that you get those 5 in the military, and now all of a sudden you're with one of those 5 in the cowboy world.
Really, it's the Great White Buffalo.
Great White Buffalo.
Yeah. You're like in the rangerest of rangers in the cowboy world right now in this room.
I don't know that life could or will get any better for me after I leave.
It won't. I'm sorry to say.
You're
welcome.
Barn.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. And mustaches. That's top 5 right there.
Right? You're welcome.
But
It's yesterday's. Hadn't fixed it.
so what are those guys like? I'm just trying to picture like what they would be like, just everyday stuff. Like they're gonna be going through life. I don't know. Like it's really intriguing to me that just you could be in a grocery store and one of them is a war fighter who, at any given time, could.
I think it's just you do something long enough, like a lot of those guys have, that they don't even realize the way they carry themselves. Like, just you're brought up in this environment that's so much different than what a lot of people experience, that it just becomes a part of who you are, and really, it doesn't look any different than normal unless you're in a situation where it needs to be applied. And I think that's where those guys thrive and others fall off or get out, because they just realize some guys were born to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some guys that they have been fighting since the war began at an old age, and they will fight until they die.
Yeah.
Because they truly don't believe that their cause is anything else. And I have to say there's a couple of them that I totally agree with.
Yeah.
There are some guys that I'm like, man, I don't know if this guy can do anything but kill bad guys, and he's really good at it.
Yeah. Kind of like how like somebody like JB was just made to ride rank bucket bulls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you think about that filter process that gets that one guy to that point. I mean, it's the same in everything. There's so many people start, and so few end up being at the end of that filter process. And it's in bull riding. It's in everything.
Because we get to see plenty of guys try to do it that they are not.
And
it is not in their DNA.
It's funny because I got to see so many people fail at all the schools I went to, because they're high failure rate schools. There's nothing more motivating than watching people fail.
Yeah. That's true. No, like you watch people around you, just like, I can't be that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true. How many of them, though, like, just like realize, because like I get to see people when they fail in rodeo, like having helped a lot of beginners. It's just like, this ain't for me. Like, I wouldn't really even call it a failure. Like, as far as your bull riding, like you're just like, that's not a failure.
I just knew I didn't want to do it.
Right, right. I wouldn't count that as a failure. You know, you're just like, I don't really want to do this. I'm out. Like, how many of it did that happen a lot? People are just like, I've realized this isn't
through
for
different
me.
schools. Like, I went to a couple of schools that were extremely challenging. One was combat diver qualification course, which is the Special Forces dive school, and then Ranger school is another tough one. And the uniqueness about the toughness of those schools is people will just eventually get to the point where I'm not doing this anymore. I'm uncomfortable. This is not for me. I'm out.
Yeah.
And that happens quite a bit in those schools.
Is there a point, though, where it's like, man, if you'd have just hung on like one more week?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you always tell yourself in that school, I'll quit tomorrow. Like, that's what you tell yourself every morning, I'll quit tomorrow.
Were there guys that like chirped about it like that? Were like, and then they were the first guys that like.
And that's where that humbleness of how you carry yourself starts. And that's why the guys we were talking about a little bit ago, they were not chirping when they were that
They were
everybody-
sitting back and watching
Right.
and listening and taking that stuff in.
Yeah,
like-
and the spotlight rangers and the chirpers, it always catches up to them.
Yeah.
It's always just a matter.
Well, I think that's in anything.
Yeah, it
Like-
is.
Like I see those kinds of guys in everything.
Yeah, I mean, the more you chirp, the louder it's gonna be when you get popped in the mouth. Like it's just the way of the world, and it's fine. Like there's a borderline, there's a thin line between confidence and cockiness, and it's very important to tread that line. And I
Right.
think sometimes you dip on both sides, but I think that's the way you should carry yourself in everything.
Yeah. So seeing yourself now, you're 30, moving forward, like what do you see as like your goal profession or just industry?
Nomad.
Well, I'm gonna build a fence today.
Yeah, you're gonna help with the round pen.
I'm a roustabout, and I'll do a little bit of any type of work.
Yeah.
Get money for it. No, I've told people I don't know how long I can get away with this, but I keep telling people I didn't have much of a 20s because of my old work, so I'm trying to have my 20s and my 30s.
I understand. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but I've got a girlfriend right now who's super supportive of everything I'm doing with music and wanting to travel and move around. And I feel good about not having the best plan, but still having a plan. I think it's important that you have a plan. It doesn't need to be the best plan. So I've got some 1 to 2 year targets, and I'm thinking down the road. But to me, it just boils down to, am I happy? If I'm not, change it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a college degree I've never used. At the end of the day, if I needed to, I could probably go get a job.
Yeah. Yeah, so I got to watch that, obviously, with my old traveling partner, and I felt like his everything just got shifted by, in his case, what was he in, 4 years?
Yeah, he's in 4.
He was just in 4 years. So it all got shifted, but as far as, and he was a bareback rider, so he started college 4 years later, he started riding bareback horses 4 years later, but so did his fitness. So like he's riding against younger guys, but he also didn't have the wear and tear that some of those.
Yeah, he's 25 going against 17 and 18-year-olds that have been doing it since they were
Right.
12.
But then, and the 25-year-olds that had been doing it since they were 17, 18, like they were starting to get broken up. Anyways, the point is he's 38 now, and the other day he spurred the crap out of a bareback horse at 38 years old, which to me out of the 4 events is the most physical demanding as far as the wear and tear on your body. And he felt great. And and this was in Graham, which was at the end of May. He had been on one horse this year, because of all the delays and rodeo cancellations. So and he just had been working out, hitting the spur board, and at 38, but anyways, my point is my observation with him is had he not gone to the military and essentially had like this 4-year break where he went into this other deal, he would be at this situation at 34. Mm-hmm. And because everybody's, like the young age has changed, I feel like.
Right.
Yeah, so like 30 in 1980, you got to have you got all 3 of your kids.
Yeah.
They're in the 5th grade.
Halfway to retirement.
Yes,
Yeah.
You're halfway to retirement. 30 in the year 2020,
You might just now be getting a degree.
yeah, you're
You might.
9 years away from settling down.
Right.
Maybe.
I mean, why not? Like,
Absolutely.
we're on this. We're all together on this spinning ball, like somehow being stuck to it with gravity. Let's do the things that make us happy for as long as they
Right.
make us happy. Like spur bowl at 38. Go
Yeah.
fight a bull at 40. Like,
Yeah.
If it
The-
makes you happy, why not do it?
Yeah.
Because maybe you don't get to do it if you don't do it.
And I think rodeo is the only thing really or something, other things similar to that have that time limit on them.
Oh yeah.
You're not gonna go to the NFR at 50 years old. You're not. You can start a business and be an entrepreneur at 50. You could, run a triathlon.
Not in rough stock. You could.
Yeah,
team
rough
rope
stock.
it and-
Yeah, team
Yeah,
roping.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, sorry. When I say rodeo, sometimes
Well, you see those young kids fighting the bulls.
yeah,
Like, it's clear they love it and they want to get it in while they can.
right.
And I think back to when I went through like dive school, you can pay me a boatload of cash to go try that now.
Yeah.
I was young and motivated. I turned
Right.
21 down there at dive school. I was at my peak. I wanted to do the baddest thing I could. I wanted to be the baddest mother I could.
Yeah.
And that's how young guys are at that age like that.
Right.
And I think it's killer to see guys that are recognize this is when I need to do it.
Yep.
Let's do it now.
Yeah, because, I mean, I don't know. I think about what's it as far as even like entrepreneur stuff and the lady that started Grey Goose. Is it Grey Goose vodka? Yeah, I think she was in her 70s.
And she
If you
started.
like
she
to
started
drink,
that.
might as well.
when she started that whenever she was in her 70s.
She's
Anyway.
been drinking bad vodka for 69 years. She wanted to start a good vodka.
That's what I know. She's tired of it. Like let's get something better in our system. Anyway, that's just what I think. I don't know.
I don't think there's a prescribed timeline that we should be fulfilling. And the different generations of folks, from the Gen Zs to the Boomers, we've and the things that have happened in the world and the United States have built this structural timeline of graduate college, get married, have kids, white picket fence, 401k, retire at 60, start living at 65. Like, why?
Yeah.
If I can be happy now at 30 to 35, why wait till I'm 65? Who even
Right.
knows if I'm going to make it there? Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to be totally feckless in everything you do. Like, try to save some money, try to do the right things, but
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
don't have to,
Yeah.
at the same time, throw all your cards into one.
Bobby Steiner. That's what I want to be.
Yes.
Bobby Steiner.
I 100%. I
Like-
seen that guy, and I was like, that's my goal.
And it's not just the fact that he's in such great shape at 68. It's
lives
not
his
it's
life.
it's not just the fact that like the youthfulness in his eyes when he jumped out there to barefoot water ski with his grandson and just do these random Did you see that video?
Is that what you were showing
Yeah, I was
me?
telling
Yeah, where he's out there
Yeah.
barefoot water ski. Just
Wow.
he says, what does he say? I ain't got time to get old.
Yeah, don't let the old man in.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood. He quoted Clint Eastwood. He's like, "Don't let the old man in." That to me, like that's quality of life. That's what I just living it till then. You know what? I think it was 1973 or 74 world champion bull rider. Like that's a long time ago, and he is still living life to its
It
fullest.
looks like he's
Yeah.
40.
I just
Yeah.
can't imagine waiting around till the latter half of my life to be like, okay, I'm ready to start living.
Yeah.
I would be full of regrets.
Right. Yeah, I've got a few buddies, even military. Most of them are military now that I'm thinking about it. The 2, 3, 4 guys that are like you, and they're just like they might be 30 or mid 30s, or even Ross at 38, riding bareback horses, like just kind of just living life.
I think you get.
Do you think it comes from the perspective of seeing like death in front of you so many times?
I think it might come from the perspective of just like really truly realizing things aren't that bad, and the things that normally would have stressed me out, I've experienced so much more stress than this. Like I can live out of my truck for a few months if I need to. Like that will shut some people down.
Mm-hmm.
If they can't figure out what they're going to be eating for breakfast the next morning, like it'll shut some people down.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just in the military or just seeing stressful environments or seeing combat or seeing death. I think it all is around the fulcrum point of mortality, though. And I think once you come to terms with mortality in whatever capacity it takes you to get to that point, whether it just be through self-knowledge and education or actually witnessing the truth of mortality, once you have a grasp on that or start to understand a little, then it crushes your ego and you don't give a crap about what people think.
Yes.
Or what
that's
you
it.
think, and you can start to really live.
That was my next question, because that's what I feel like gets most people if they're 30 and they feel like by then they've got to have the 2 kids and the picket fence and a safe job. It's not necessarily, they're obviously, no, I don't want to say obviously, because some people want that by then and that's their true desire.
Right.
And I've got friends that are like that and they're completely happy, and that's okay.
And you can tell, though,
Right.
who it's supposed to be.
But then there's other people, like they're doing that just because their parents or grandparents or, coworkers, friends think they should do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sad part.
It is. And
It's not sad to see people do that.
But when you start to see your friends do it, and the
That
people
don't
closest
want
you
to do it.
and you see them in that bind, and they start coming to you on the side, like, man, I can't breathe. Like,
Yeah.
it's good to hang out with you and talk to you for some normalcy.
Yes.
So, man.
Yeah, they
Should've
see
thought
you
about
as like you're right. Yeah, that's what's sad when you see people doing things because based on what other people think. When really and one step further, whenever they do that based on what people think, and those people they don't even like.
And that's why it all boils back to,
Like, it may not even be their parents. They don't like these other people over here,
Right.
but those people have this amount of success in this area, so this person, but they don't even like them, and they're worried about what they think.
it's all, and that's why I know it sounds weird, but it boils back to ego suppression. And when the bigger of an ego you have, and it's not that ego is a bad thing, it's that what ego does is it lets in self-doubt. Because you want to put off this perception of who you are, so you're going to care more about what people think. And when you can start to suppress that and start to care less about what people think, it starts to bring in that feeling of, man, I don't care. Like,
Yeah,
sure,
Yeah.
you do you, I'll do me. And
right.
there's so many things in our society today that enhance that need for reassurance from people you don't even know.
Right.
And if
Yeah.
you're needing reassurance from people you don't even know,
Or like.
then that's something you got to deal with before you can ever really start to figure out, how am I going to be happy?
Yeah.
Because you can't please people you don't even know.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
They're not interested in that.
Right. So, we talked about bullfighting. Did you happen to see where we got a bull from Casey Donahue?
Oh, I heard.
And then Donnie.
Yeah, I saw. I
Okay,
watched.
so
I
Donnie.
heard. I saw. And I watched.
Here's the deal. Donnie was supposed to touch this bull for $250. I think the bull touched him. And we've had a lot of people voting and weighing in. Do you think he deserves the $250? Does that
You
count?
still hadn't paid him?
I feel like this was podcast like 22 or 23.
Maybe. I'm just $250 is a lot of money.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, I have to say, Donnie deserves the money. Yeah, there's contact. I mean, you could. Square's not a rectangle is not squared all day, but
Let me see if I even have it with me. You know what? I probably don't even have. Oh, dang, I do have it with me. Donnie, you've got to do something for me, though.
Dude, I already did.
That wasn't the deal. Yeah, he just had to. He just had to touch the bull.
you there,
250.
folks.
Hold it up to the microphone so they can hear it.
Okay, but you have to buy my lunch
Okay. Fair enough.
every day this week.
Chubway, $5 foot long.
Yeah, you're getting what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Just keep that 20. We should hold you over on footlongs for the week.
Did you know they stopped doing the $5 foot long?
As they should have. Inflation, bro.
Whatever.
It's only like $7.
Yeah. That's a lot of sandwich, too.
Dude,
Like, you can't even eat it all in one
love
sitting.
It's not even a full
Subway.
foot long. It's only
I
like
do
10 and a
not
half
love
inches.
Subway.
I don't
Man,
either. It makes my stomach
I
hurt.
love Subway, but, like, it's the closest fast food joint to Winnebago. So, like, for a couple of years, I'm
You
like,
drive
maybe
half a mile more and get a burger.
4 times a week I had Subway. The crazy thing about that Subway, the reason why that got me burnt out on it was, I'm not lying to you. Every single time I'd go in there, there was a new person working. Number one, I don't know how they got that many new people in there. But number two, it's just like, why are y'all going through so many people? And then there's somebody new making your sandwich every time. And the inconsistency, I think, is probably what turned me off. You know, I'm sorry to get technical about why I don't like this.
It's
Subway,
important.
you know.
It's important to know how you like your sandwiches.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In that specific Subway, like, you want it toasted? Just a little bit black.
Black.
Like,
But
Come on.
no, I don't. I'm not going to eat that, man. Well, this is what you get. I'm not paying for that. I hadn't paid for it yet. I'm not buying that.
I'm not one to complain about my food all that often, but
Well, I
you
mean,
never
when
know.
you actually get to pick it and you get to tell them exactly what you want and they still don't do it correctly, like,
Leroy's got some frustrations.
I've emailed Subway a couple times.
He sometimes lets his hair down and turns into Karen.
No, I don't. I don't ever ask to speak to a manager. It's just
You don't
like,
got the
I don't
undercut?
appreciate this. I used to. Not on purpose.
You
One
had
lady-
an
that one lady.
One lady messed
my
him
hair up
up.
bad.
Oh my gosh, he was mad for weeks.
Worse than you messed it up on your own?
Oh, yeah. Like, at least when I messed it up on my own, it was like Steven Tyler-esque in the 70s. Like, I still looked like I could be a badass if I wanted to be. But, no, I mean, it was like when she got done, I looked in the mirror and I was like, why is it longer in the front than it is the back? What is
That was bad, dude.
My biggest regret in the last year was cutting my hair. It's been painful to let it grow back out.
How long does it take you to grow yours out?
I was up to right about here in October.
Okay.
So it's already down to my upper back. I cut it. It was just below the middle of my back. And I made the worst mistake in the world, and I cut it to the most awkward length your hair can be at. It's that length where you are holding clippers every day thinking, am I just going to shave this off and be done with it? Am I going to let it go?
Yeah.
And I told myself 6 months it'll be back, and it's almost back.
Yeah. It took me for it to qualify as long hair and not just like shaggy.
That's not a wig?
What?
No.
Dog, this is real.
The carpets match the drapes for sure.
Yeah. 14 months. 14 months. You really thought this was a wig?
No.
Oh, okay. I was about to say. Also, merch, shout out. Did you see the new hat?
Yeah, it's my
It's
favorite.
not coming out till next month.
You got another one of those I
That's
can
a
have?
nice hat.
I mean, I got another one you can buy.
Okay.
Okay. He'll spot you. He's got some cash.
Yeah, why don't you
Talk to
sponsor
Donnie.
mine?
Yeah,
That'd be
I
awesome.
fought for you for that.
Are
You
y'all
did,
going?
yeah. I can't.
So y'all,
No, you
this
don't
is
know me
first
anything.
rodeo back in a while this weekend? Y'all going to the rodeo, aren't you?
Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah. So I don't think I'm gonna go tonight, but Friday, come see me. This podcast will be out after that, so
You getting on?
they don't have enough added.
Oh.
Yeah. Unless you guys want to add some more, I'll get on one. Don't forget my bull rope.
Too bad this is going to air after, so
Yeah.
I can't add anymore.
Next
Oh
one,
yeah,
though.
Next
gonna,
year.
Yeah, I'm gonna forget my bull rope.
Yeah, I'm gonna figure out my bull rope. Well, thanks for coming out, Mr. Paul Handleman.
When's your new album coming
Yeah, I'm gonna
out?
plug my new record real quick.
Okay, yeah.
I was up in Kentucky in February and we cut a record up there.
We could have started with that,
That's
by the
all right.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're still hanging on to this podcast and you've made it to the end, congratulations. Here's the prize. I cut a record in February up in Eastern Kentucky and with some really awesome guys, and we just finished mixing and mastering it, and it's going to release the latter half of July. So that'll be out. I'll release a single first week or so of July once I get them all back, and then the whole record will come out end of July. And I don't know what's going to happen with music. I don't know what's going to happen with life. It's weird times right now, especially in that industry. That's why I'm back doing blue-collar work again, because the lazy musicianship doesn't cut it when all the bars are closed.
Yeah.
But I'm going to send this record off to the universe and see what happens with it. And it's a lot of stories that are important to me, and I had a great time making it. So I'll make sure and update it on my social media and stuff when it's going to be out. But look for it. It's a great record with a lot of really good folks that help make it. That's what makes the record so good. Not my songs, just the people that got to play with.
Mm-hmm. You got any life advice for the citizens of Winnebago?
Man, my life advice just always boils down to asking yourself every day if you're happy. And if the yays are more than the nays over a period of time, you're doing the right thing. And if not, you ain't no cowboy and you need to change what you're doing.
Because there's some days where you're not.
There are.
Where
Absolutely.
there's some days where you're doing what you got to be doing, but you're not happy.
And you've got to recognize where that balance and that tipping point is.
Because that's why I like to call it at peace.
Yeah.
Because happiness kind of comes and goes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, like you said, there should be more days that you're happy than you're not. But there's things you got to do when you're doing what you have to do in life
That don't make
or
you
supposed
happy.
to do that don't make you happy.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's why I like to say, whenever I'm having those conversations, like, are you at peace? Because you can be at peace but not happy.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like, there's times when, like, I know this is a means to doing, what makes me happy, so I'm at peace doing it.
Yeah.
But then there's times when you got the crappy job, and you are not happy, and you are not at peace. That's when you got to get out,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, just be good to each other. That's the only other thing.
Yeah,
man.
no kidding.
There's no better time than now to just be good to each other.
Yeah.
And love your neighbors and love each other, because we're all here
Yeah.
trying to figure it out together.
We're not going anywhere. Leroy,
Wash your hands and say your prayers, because germs and Jesus are everywhere.
you got to say everywheres.
Everywhere's.
Wash your hands and say your prayers, because
Prayers.
germs and Jesus are everywhere.
Everywhere's.
Donnie?
Be passionate about being passionate.
In everything. When life hands you lemons, put a bow rope on them. Pow pow and on to the next one.